Welcome to the Gigless Podcast, a podcast showcasing the works and talents of those who lost their gigs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This podcast will feature a range of creatives from the tri-state area who are young visionaries and who contribute to their craft despite the recent events that have happened. Join us today as our host Remi Leibovic speaks with Ædan McEvoy, the New Jersey-based composer, harpist, songwriter, and collaborator. Ædan's work can be described as quirky, whimsical, otherworldly, and honest. Ædan has lent their musical abilities to various projects such as the Gateway Totem Project, the Young Artist Harp Society, and the New York Youth Symphony Composition Program. You can learn more about Ædan's projects and about future works in the show notes of this episode. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of Gigless. I'm your host, Remi Leibovic, and today I have our guest, Ædan.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It is great to have you, Ædan. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a musician from North Jersey, and I'm a, songwriter, keyboardist, harpist. And that's a little bit about me.
So what I think that is so interesting about you, Ædan, is the fact that you are a harpist. I feel that harp is very rare these days, especially because the instrument itself, when you have to perform it, a lot of people that probably aren't into music or are listening right now or don't really know about the instrument of the harp. The harp is like a whole job. It's a whole hour of setting a harp up before the actual show. There is a pre-show for that musician.
Yeah, it is definitely an instrument that requires a little bit more preparation than others. The harp is really, really cool, and I teach harp lessons, and I tell my little harpists all the time that harp is a lifestyle. It's not it's not it's wonderful to play, and depending on how far you want to take it, you can get to that big harp with the big setup and all of that stuff, and that's really fun. But harp is so cool because they come in so many different sizes. So you can get a super tiny one, and that's very little upkeep, very little maintenance, and all the way to the big giant ones. So everything in between.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, when playing, before COVID, what was your typical gig?
Yeah. So before COVID, I was playing weddings, funerals, memorials, birthday parties, private events, corporate dinners, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, any sort of gathering where there was anywhere from 10 to 500 people, and transporting the harp all over the place, all over New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Long Island. There were just plenty of gigs, plenty of things happening. It was really awesome.
And I know that you said that you also have some experience with piano. So would some of these gigs be piano as well? And what was the type of genre of music that you would play at? I know that it's so different with the funeral to wedding to bar mitzvah to bat mitzvah, but what was the standard what was the most common thing or genre that you would play?
So the keyboard, I think, was way more, I played keyboard a lot for musical theater, being in pit orchestras. I did that, but I would say like the number one thing was moving my keyboard around so I could play my music, my original music, whether that be at um, like jam sessions or open mics or like coffee house type events, or playing like punk shows, or like whatever was like happening at the time. So it was cool because especially last year I was playing in I think like 3 different bands and playing keys on all of them. And it was awesome to like just jump from one gig at like pianos in like New York and then play somewhere in like the middle of nowhere, New Jersey the next day, and then play again somewhere else. It was just really cool, very diverse. So yeah, so most of my gigs with the keys was with like my own original music or one of my friends' original music.
Do you mind plugging some of those bands in or those projects?
Absolutely. So the one band that I was playing harp in. Excuse me, I said the wrong thing earlier. I was playing keys and harp in these bands. Was this Brooklyn band called Spooky Wilson, and you can listen to them on Spotify and I think all the other streaming platforms. And I was playing in a progressive prog metal band called Gates to the Morning.
I love progressive metal so
Check
much.
them
I love
out.
prog metal.
Check them out. So the stuff is pretty good, and it's very good. And last year I was also playing in a band called The Hums, and it was cool. It was like a little. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a motorcycle.
It's okay.
It was kind of like a collaboration project with a friend of mine, Paris Malupis. He's a guitarist who I've played many bands in with. Like we have been playing in bands together for a long time, and he and we were working on a project together, and we ran into the Hums, which at the time was just a drummer and a bassist, and we ran into them at a party, and I was like, "Hey, my guitarist and I were looking for a drummer and a bassist," and they were like, "That's so funny. We're looking for a keyboardist and a guitarist," and I was like, So
that's excellent.
I was like, this doesn't happen. Like 50% of the band meeting the other 50% of the band at a party, like.
Must have been a pretty poppin' party.
It was really nice, and like it was just really nice when like all of us came together because the music that we made was really awesome. We got to play a festival last year called Luminous City on Randall's Island, and it was like this 3-day light festival, and it was just really cool. And so obviously now because of COVID we don't meet up, but yeah.
I miss shows so much, and I miss events, and I miss museums, and I miss all of the interactions, like that party that you were describing. I miss that kind of stuff. And
same.
Well, then that shifts me to my next question is, how have you adapted to the new way of working? Like, how has your work shifted as a composer and as a musician? How has this time like affected you?
So it has definitely made me, I think, have to think outside the box. I am prior to COVID, or I should say at the very beginning of COVID, my band and we were working on music for my EP release show. We were working really hard, like twice or 3 times weekly, trying to get these songs ready to go for an April show that never happened. And so like once I got over like kind of the disappointment aspect of that, and just realizing that it's like not safe to like have anybody around each other right now. Once that kind of got like digested, I was like, all right, well, I need to figure out how to um, get my music out there and played. I need to figure out how to like make money because now all of my gigs for the next year have been canceled. Like it was just like a lot. Like the very front of the very first couple of like weeks of COVID, I was like, oh my god, definitely freaking out. Because this is all I do. Like music is all I do. Like I don't have another job. Um, so I teach lessons now, like over Zoom, and I just started doing like in-person lessons. During the lockdown, I played a few weddings, which was really cool over Zoom.
That's so sweet. I feel like that's such a beautiful touch to it, even though like a lot of people had like porch weddings or backyard weddings. I still feel like that's such a nice accent to something, you know?
It really is, and like I thought that I wouldn't like it because I was like, oh, it's just not the same, you know. Because when you play these events, like it is emotional. Like I cry at weddings too. Like you know, you know, it's just a different feeling when you're around all of that and you're playing for, you know, for that. It is really awesome. Um, but it turns out that playing a Zoom wedding is just as moving, you know. Um, I still really enjoyed it, and you know, I'm glad that like, you know, the people who were getting married enjoyed it. Like that's the at the end of the day, like that's the most important thing. And especially this year, like people choosing to still have ceremonies, even if it's in their living room, even if it's in their backyard, like that's really awesome. And so I was pleasantly surprised that it like all worked out.
Right. And, you know, Ædan, one of the things that I'm thinking of while talking to you now is the fact that, you know, harp is it's such a heavy instrument, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And to carry that from gig to gig, do you go into the experimental space? Do you go into spaces that you're able to explore those types of emotions, especially now where everything is virtual? Like,
Hmm.
how do you navigate that, like, you know, musical realm while still attuning to the idea or the like soundscapes of a heart?
So it totally always depends on like what the um you know what if this is like a wedding or if it's like some exchange where there's like a client and there's like payment. Usually with something like that, I can like talk to them and ask them how free they want me to be with my playing because I'll do anything. Like I'm like I know that sounds bad, but like I will be either as like exact as you want or like as loose, you know, um for weddings and such. Like earlier this year, I had a client ask me to play um Lord of the Rings, like the Lord of the Rings theme.
Which
Yeah.
one?
Um, da 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 da. Da. I think it's
Okay.
concerning hobbits.
Yeah, The Hobbit. Okay, so the first,
Yeah,
like, an unexpected journey. Okay.
and
I'm a Lord of
like
the Rings fan.
me too. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, I love to play that. And then like the next tune was like a Harry Potter theme, and you know all of these things sound amazing on the harp, like you know, and so it was just really fun to like build set lists that I actually, you know, that not that I actually enjoyed, but you know, set lists that were maybe a little different. Um, like last year and the year before and the year before that, I was playing in churches and like, playing everything like kind of prim and proper and making sure everything sounded nice in such a big room. Now I'm like playing in front of a screen and like in my pajamas and you know, like only half of me is like dressed nice.
I completely understand that. That is like, you know, that is it for these days. It's like the Zoom attire is like the halfway up kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's excellent to hear that like you're able to find such great clients that you be able to like experiment with these like really cool sounds and great music. And so you have done like gigs and streams and everything. What are some of the gigs that you lost during this time?
Yeah. I was supposed to play, I believe at the end of March. I had something scheduled with a trio of mine. It was harp, flute, and violin. And we were gonna play this like slightly large event and that got canceled pretty soon. Like events that I had booked with like churches that I play with every year, like Easter, um, things like communions and like weddings that were set for May because May is a really big wedding month. And yeah, everything was just getting canceled left and right. And I understood why. Um, but, it's definitely really difficult when a portion of these gigs like pay my bills, they literally allow me to eat. So
Right.
it was definitely kind of like a crazy rush. Like I had to kind of figure out what to do. So yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that when part of the reason why we decided to do gigless, and one of the things that hit me is I will never forget the day that like I just got a million notifications that everything that I RSVP'd to was done. Like they just canceled everything and it was like, oh my goodness. And there was like this idea that basically like, the gig economy, people think about Uber or Lyft or DoorDash or these like apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But artists and musicians and composers like yourself have always been doing gig work or contracted temporary work because a wedding is not necessarily like, a whole semester worth of like hours. I mean,
Right.
you could put the practice and time into that to make it to that wedding, which of course you get compensated for. But like time wise, it's completely different, which is what we on the Gigless platform are trying to explain to people is that like, no, like people's literal incomes that were completely based upon their creativity were affected.
Yeah.
And that's like, we've had people that were working like, 5 gigs at once. And
Yeah.
like you said, May was going to be your payday Mayday.
Right, exactly. Like as musicians, there are certain moments in the year, certain months where you just know that it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Even the years where I had many gigs and I was very busy and I was at times having to turn down gigs just because I was already booked. Um, you know, even those amazing, like I'm very grateful for all of that. Um, but having it go from like that to close to nothing in the matter of like 2 weeks was just a lot. It was like a lot for me and it was a lot for like other people I know in this industry. not just musicians, but other creatives who were like, oh my God, what do I do? And thankfully it like all worked out. But there's definitely still like an anxious, feeling. And of course, like, you know, music is not about the money. Like that's not that's not a reason to go into music at all.
Anyone who thinks that music, like being a musician, will get you money, like no, there's so much like it's so like sad at this point, but basically like it's all essentially like all the clout that people get, like all the cars that you might see musicians buy or all that stuff, like that all belongs to the record label. That doesn't belong to them. They're in debt to the record label for that,
Absolutely. And it's like, as musicians, like those are things that like we actively need to, have on our mind, is that like, that this just happens to be like a very expensive industry. And the amount of work and the amount of like time and effort and energy and like strings and like just all of this stuff, it's just a lot. And I felt like, especially then, I was like doing it all on my own.
How much is a harp repair?
So like a harp repair, it really does depend on what's going on, but like harps, I mean, the harps themselves, like they can go anywhere from 1,000 all the way up to like 30,000. You know what I mean? The harp that I play, I have like a Celtic harp, which is a little bit smaller, and it's more of like, it's sometimes called a folk harp or a lever harp. Those are slightly smaller. They're only like 22 strings, or like I think mine is like 47 strings. The bigger harps are like, those ones are a little bit more. So yeah, but I would say like a normal repair is anywhere from like $300 to $400.
Wow.
Yeah, like if I wanted to eventually, pretty soon, once I have money, I'm gonna get a new set of strings, like just an extra set of all of my strings, and that's about $400 right there. That doesn't include like the insurance that I have to pay for it, like the various things that I need to do. Like it needs to have a humidifier, like the heat needs to be on a certain temperature. Like
it's like your baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is just a certain amount of like preparation that you have to have with the harp. But once you get used to it, it's like anything else. But it's cool because like keyboard is so different, especially, not only because it's an electronic instrument, but it's actually the instrument that I've been playing the longest. And so I feel, I guess, the most at home behind the keys. And that is just like so easy, just like you can leave it anywhere basically and it's fine.
When did you start keyboard and when did you start harp, and how long, for our listeners, have you been playing like both instruments? You could say like X years here, Y years here.
Sure. I've been playing keys since I was 5. And I've been playing harp since I was 20. And I'm 27 right now. So yeah, I've been playing keys for a little bit longer. I'm very bad at math. I'm not sure how many.
It's okay. It's okay. That's why we're creatives. Like that's what I often tell people. I'm like
5, 10.
The only math I'm good at is my paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Like this number looks right. This number doesn't look right.
Right. And that goes into the flow of this conversation is going swimmingly, by the way.
Nice.
Right. So you're talking about maintenance, you're talking about keeping up the harp and, the fact that like your piano is basically fine. But
Hmm.
has there been a lack in materials for your work in these past like few months? Like we're at least in 10 months into this whole pandemic at this point.
As far as like gigs go, or like,
Well, for you personally as a
mhm.
composer and musician, can you get access to sheet music? Can you get access to repairs? Like what are some struggles that you've personally encountered where you were like, man, I wish I could go and get this fixed like now, but I have to wait because everything is delayed.
Got you. I For me personally, there wasn't too much of anything that I needed to wait on. If anything, I know that like there was this one instance where um a student of mine needed a lever change. Like there are levers on the harp that allow us to go from a natural, like the string is at its loosest, to a sharp. So it gets just a little bit short, the string gets a little bit shorter. And basically, when one of those levers break, like you just gotta fix it because it's gonna be unplayable. You're gonna miss out on being able to use the sharp on that string. And there are certain strings that actually are, they're not more important, but they are more utilized than others. Um, so yeah, we couldn't get anybody to fix it. We couldn't get anyone to um to call us back, us meaning myself and the student's parent. And so it's frustrating for sure, but also um that's the thing, like harps, pianos, instruments made out of wood need, at least once a year, preferably twice a year, depending on what you need. They need someone like a professional to come look at it and be like, all right, this is good, fix this, do this. Um, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm really grateful that this is the one time in my life that I do not have a piano, because like an acoustic piano, because I wouldn't be able to tune it. Like I don't know how to tune it.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, listen, this time has been revealing a lot of things about everybody lately. Have you been attempting any new skills? Are you getting back to the roots of your creativity? Like, where are you finding inspiration?
Yeah, I feel really fortunate because um, I've had a lot to write about. So I've been writing a lot of new music, and I'm currently in the process of starting a recording project with a couple of my friends. Hopefully, going to be releasing some new music in the new year. And I just have like a couple other projects bubbling away with like some visual artists. And so there are things happening, although it's been a little bit maybe slower than I would like. I also am going at it with the mentality that I'm like, we're all going through it. It's a lot. Let's just do what we can.
Right. And so, one of the things that I have been noticing a lot of musicians doing, and you could tell me if I'm right or wrong about this,
Mhm.
but they've been like trying to play different genres that they don't typically play.
Right.
So please tell me how you're getting into folk metal.
Yeah, it was well, getting into metal was interesting. Um a drummer friend of mine who is the drummer in Gates of the Morning, we actually went to Montclair together. He said that he was looking for a keyboardist, and a keyboardist in a metal band. I was like, oh, cool, like that would be all me. Like that would be it. So I joined that band. We actually went on tour, 2 mini tours. We played down in Philly, we played in Brooklyn, we played in Cleveland. So that was really, really fun. Late last year, I wound up having to leave the band, just because I wanted to pursue my own musical interests. I do this thing where I like get really excited about my friends' music, and then like want to be want to participate and be a part of their projects. And then I'm like, oh my god, wait, hold on! I also have to take care of my music too. So I'm constantly walking that fence of back and forth, back and forth.
Yes.
So yeah, so now currently in 2020, I had to stop and think about that for a second. I'm like, what year is it?
It's almost 2021, but maybe this episode will come out in 2021. But for those of you wanting to know, we recorded this on December 9th, 2020.
Exactly. So right now I'm working with a few hip hop artists, which is always really cool. Right now I'm playing keys, but in the past I've played a couple like harp hip hop.
That's such an interesting combination.
It
It's so
works
great.
really
It works
well.
so well.
It works really, really well. Sometimes people don't believe me, but I tell them, I'm like, harp and hip hop, they go together really nicely. And because there's just so many sounds you can get out of the harp, and I also like I sing as well, so you can like sing into the holes of the harp and get like a really cool, spooky, eerie kind of ghostly sound. There's just so many things to try. I guess I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but prior to me getting into Montclair for composition, when I was in high school, I was a percussionist, and like the way that I was taught was that like anything could be an instrument, um, like any sound and anything that can be hit or like played, you know. So I definitely carried that over into harp and into all of the other instruments that I choose to play. And I think that's really important, is to like experiment and to like find the wacky and the weird and the stuff that's like you might never use, because I do come at it from a composer's perspective. Like I am interested in hearing different sounds. And so yeah, so now currently I'm like trying to brush up on my contemporary harp playing, trying to play like new music. And I'm also kind of going back to the roots as well, playing a lot of Irish tunes.
Like what?
I have this book. I forget what it's. I have to look
Outlander.
up the name of it. Outlander. Yeah, you know, it's like all of those old tunes that are like from the time of, you know, like Cahulan and like all of the old like Celtic gods and stuff like that. I'm into all of that. And
We're gonna talk after. Maybe we should
oh,
have like a
geez.
post show. We should definitely have a
Yes.
post show where we just ask gigless hosts what they're nerding out about with Remi.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm just trying to play like a little bit of everything. Like um I'm trying to think of like some of the Irish tunes. It's weird because some of them don't even have names, because they're just like chanter number 2. Like I don't know what that is. Like um but yeah, and as far as keyboard, I'm always trying to get better at jazz. I think my jazz playing can be greatly uh, enhanced. So yeah.
Well, that's great to hear that you still are approaching all these other genres with a curiosity and seeing how you can blend into them or make them, adapt to you. And I think that just shows like the resilience of you as a composer and as a musician during this time, because I know that there are a lot of people, like today we earlier shared the hashtag like save our stages because of the issue where all these venues are facing closure like permanently.
Yeah.
And I think that, while the venues are like what I'm trying to say is the venues are a physical thing, but the music is something that can be like, it's ethereal, like it's everywhere. It can be transformed onto this virtual platform, or it can be transformed into a physical platform. And one of the things I have been hearing is where bands have tried getting together via Zoom, like early in the days of the quarantine, and the sound was just off. Can you confirm that?
Yes. Oh my God. It was very difficult. At first I was like, oh my God, rehearsing is going to be so much easier because I don't even have to leave my house and I don't have to move anything. I can just like literally sit down in front of my keyboard, forgetting that there's always going to be that latency issue. And the sound coming back is just going to be terrible. And I remember even there was like this thing that Zoom put out that was like, do this, 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 and that to make your audio quality a little bit better. And like at home, I use this like just USB mic like right into my laptop if I ever need to send recordings to anybody, or if my students need like a higher quality video of something, whatever, like I'll use that. But it like made no difference, and it was like definitely difficult. So there was a learning curve. Thankfully I'm not scared of learning something new. But now where I am, I know that like moving forward, I definitely have to upgrade my stuff and like kind of come at it from a new perspective. Like now more than ever, I think we've moved into like a very visual world, and like having visuals mixed in with the music is really the only way now for it to like gain traction. And thankfully, like I have an amazing team of people behind me who are like so helpful and like such great artists.
How have they supported you?
So my one friend, his name is Nicholas Correa.
We'll plug him.
Oh yes, please do. He is he's an amazing designer and animator, and we've been friends for so long. And he made the cover of my album. I have an album on Spotify and all the places called Caged, and he made the album artwork, and it came out very, very nicely. And we have plans in the future to make a few videos that are going to go alongside some of the music that I've been making. So it's really cool. Like I have a couple of friends who are amazing photographers. My one friend, Nick Fernandez, he's an amazing photographer and animator as well. So it's another friend of mine, Ali Yanizi. She's an amazing photographer. I just feel really grateful that I have like people around me who, not only support my art, but they themselves have like really amazing art. It's very important, I think, for me to be like around people who inspire me, and these people inspire me 100%. So it's awesome.
Right. Well, sadly, we're in the last like 5 minutes of our interview because it goes by so fast.
Nice.
I think that's definitely something like a project that if you guys want to listen to 2 hours worth of gigless conversations, we're probably going to do a special on that in the future. But for now, what are your final thoughts that you would love all our great listeners to hear?
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, for those of you who are, creatives, I like wish all of you the best. This has been a very like trying time, and I feel like hopefully we'll be better for it, even though it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. But yeah, and I guess for all like my non-creative friends, like, definitely please support your artist friends if you can. Like a little goes a very long way, and like, yeah, it's any little bit helps your friends who are creatives.
Right, and that could be anything from sharing, liking, saving posts, listening to music, streaming, watching streams, even if you have to put them on mute, and you're doing something else. All of that stuff really tallies up and helps fight against these crazy algorithms. It just seems to be getting worse and worse every day.
Exactly. It's a matrix. Like, I don't get it at all, but yeah, that's what we got to do.
It is definitely something that we're all going to have to eventually adapt to, but I think that you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Especially with the type of instrument that you are primarily working with.
Thank you so much. I hope so. I hope I'm doing all right.
Well, Ædan, thank you so much for being on this episode of Gigless. I am so glad that we were able to interview you and get your, all of your knowledge and all of your experiences onto this episode of Gigless. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And Ædan, would you mind telling our listeners where they could find you?
Sure. They can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, SoundCloud. The fastest way to probably find me is through my website, which is AEdanmusic.com, and that's spelled AEDAN music.com. And yeah, and there's more music to come in the future, so watch out.
I'm so excited for it. And I just want to let you know, I bookmarked your page on SoundCloud. So I listen to everybody that comes on Gigless. I listen to everything, no matter what. So
awesome.
What it is, what I have to see, I listen to it all. I see it all. So thank you again for being on this episode of Gigless.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Dane, take us out.
Thank you for listening to the Gigless podcast, hosted by Remi Leibovic and produced by Dane Wagner. The song used in our intro and outro is Beach Walk by Unicorn Heads. If you enjoyed this podcast, head over to our social media pages on Instagram at Gigless Podcast and our website, giglesspodcastblog.wordpress.com. There you can find out more about the artist, contact the host and producer, and find out more about our schedule. Thank you.